left on the floor.
Hey everyone, we are having book club for the Readers of Broken Wheel recommend.
It's a novel because it says so on the front of the book.
Oh yeah, so this might be
in case you were unaware.
This might be a rough book club, guys, because Donovan already had problems with the cover. So we have a special guest now, who's the executive director of the Read Write Library here in Chicago. Would you like to tell us about the Read Write Library?
Sure. So Read Write Library is a new model for community-centered media collection. So we collect everything from Chicago's history, whether it's handmade artist books, zines made by students in literacy programs, community newspapers, and then we make it available to the public and connect all the different threads in it through our catalog so that people can see the ways that different creative and political communities have evolved over time across neighborhoods.
Cool. And then what's your address?
We're at 914 North California, Walton entrance, Chicago 60622.
Mm-hmm. And we've had letter socials there before, so if that sounds familiar, that's probably why. And then you said that you get some cool mail to the library every once in a while?
We do. People send us all kinds of things for the collection. Our collection is pretty broad, so we don't have any quality or importance judgment. So we get, single sheet handwritten poetry that people send us to archive that's been printed in like small editions, or really beautiful artist books. A lot of times people will send us stuff that they have collected over the years.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite stories, we had a guy who had Googled his own name and discovered that we had a publication of his that he'd edited in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And he no longer lived in Chicago. So he sent us from New York copies of every single thing that he'd produced during his time when he lived in Chicago.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, it's a really neat way that the internet and actually sending the physical objects coexist, because that's where people kind of first hear about us, and then things magically appear in our mailbox.
What are you looking for, my dear?
I'm looking for a donation to make to
the
Read Write Library.
Oh,
if you
awesome.
don't have it.
I do not have this yet, but I love this so much, and Mark is a good buddy of mine. So if you guys, have you talked about this before?
I haven't actually talked about it.
Can I talk about this?
Yeah, go for it.
So Mark Fisher is a super amazing artist, activist, and he has a project called Public Collectors, and that's who produced this.
I think I have a weird bookmark on it because I just didn't know where else to put this thing. Ta-da!
So,
I don't know. It's from somewhere.
I guess maybe this isn't specifically a public collectors project. I thought it was, but he does public collectors and he does temporary services. And so because temporary services and public collectors put out a lot of small booklets and publications like this, Mark spends a lot of time at the post office. And over the years has been chronicling his interactions with the post office on Facebook, to varying degrees of hilarity and disappointment. And so in this book, you will find Mark's missives of what he's written over the years from his post office exploits in Chicago.
Yeah, so that's appropriate. And thank you again for joining us.
Yeah.
Here.
So I'm assuming he has the Grace Street. He has problems with the Grace Street one?
No, it's the Logan Square.
Oh, the Logan Square one?
Specifically, yes.
He moved from a nice, quiet neighborhood post office to the Logan Square post office.
This is the Logan Square post office, if you are not familiar.
It's actually it's a nice post office in there.
It is.
For sure.
Old W.P.A. murals. It's a gorgeous building.
It's super cool.
And it's not as bad as the one that's a block away from here. So there's
Yeah, the studio's a block away from the Grace Street. What do they call it?
Carroll Street.
Oh, Carroll Street. But what is it It's like
I've always called it it's the Wicker Park Annex.
yeah, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
So
I just call it the black hole where all our mail goes.
yeah,
and we
man.
never see
Oh,
it.
God. It's like whenever you
If
go
you
to
sent
that.
us something and we didn't get it, we can blame it on them.
Yeah, whenever
I can vouch for them.
whenever I go in there to pick up a package, the waiting room is just like all these people, like strangers coming together in one common goal of being like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, why have they been here 30 minutes?
And no one's even here at the counter. Yeah, so if you're bored, the Yelp reviews of the Wicker Park Annex are quite the read.
And
Anyway.
also, you can find their correct phone number hidden in the comments on Yelp because they don't actually publish the right one online.
The more you know.
Right.
Anyway.
But we're not
No, we're not
talking
talking.
about
Let's talk about this book. So,
Really?
We do have to talk.
We have to talk about the book. All right. So, okay.
Oh, this should
Hang on.
general thoughts. Beginning
Let me first say that when I first started reading the book, it was if it wasn't for the book club, I wouldn't have finished it. And also while reading it, I was like, I can't freaking believe I asked Nell to read this book. Like, why did we invite her for this freaking book? So that was my thought. Now, my hypothesis, though, is that the only way that you can really, really, really enjoy this book is pretend it's a 1930s romantic movie. Like Clark Gable's the lead, and then you got like Norma Shearer as Sarah, and then boom. And in that sense, it's actually really conservative because instead of falling in love and getting married in 3 days, they fall in love and they get married in 2 months. Just pretend it's like a musical. There's a Busby Berkeley thing that happens in the middle.
I can see a music, sure.
Yeah.
I still can't figure it out.
So, what'd you think?
So when I got here, I was telling you guys that I was like really worried about this because I didn't know who or why had picked this book.
Yeah.
And I have a tendency to sometimes get kind of snarky. And I've gotten in trouble for it before. And so I was like steeling myself to be as politic and polite as possible. Also, polite is another one of my broken wheel drinking words.
Oh, yeah. Before we started recording, Nell said we should do a drinking game for all these things that happen in the book. So what were the 2 that you talked about before we started recording?
So the 2 main ones are anytime the writer says that something is charming or describes someone as looking at someone with amusement or being bemused. Basically, it reads like the author was trying to tell you how you were supposed to be reacting to the book throughout it.
Yeah.
But polite is another one. Polite and impolite. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. Margaret was like, a musical that breaks all immigration rules too. So much zany comedy.
We can solve everything with something that's one of the most complicated and heartbreaking things that can happen to someone in the United States.
Yeah. Oh, God damn. Anyway, all right. General thoughts. We can get into.
I read the whole thing.
Do you want a cookie?
I better get a cookie. So I didn't like it, and I found it annoying, and I have many structural issues with the book. That said, I think that if someone didn't care about what they were reading and were on a beach and had nothing better to do, it's totally fine for
it's a really good beach read.
It's a beach read.
Yeah.
I prefer my beach reads to have a lot more murder in them, but
like a good Agatha Christie is a good beach read. Yeah,
Agatha Christie is leaps and bounds your better choice. But I can't. It's a trip to nowhere, and it doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't even really take you to Broken Wheel. I wish it had taken us to Sweden. I would have had more fun in Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It takes you to a diorama.
Yeah. So
it takes you to a book that's not mentioned in this book. This book is Pollyanna.
Yeah.
It's Pollyanna. They have a fete. Like, this girl shows up and she like makes everyone magically happy in the town. And you never mention Pollyanna once.
And it's Pollyanna on so many levels.
Yes. It bothered me.
It made me, okay, so there's there's like a couple of chapters that made me think of different types of books. There was, when they introduced the two old ladies that were like eating at the diner, I was like, dude, they're a little too meta, and it makes me think of Cold Comfort Farm a little bit. Like, they're like, no, this is what happened. They fall in love. Like, these two old ladies talking about that. I'm like, okay. And then towards the end where it's like people trying to hook them up, I'm like, oh God, this is like every P.G. Wodehouse book. It's like, oh, these two bumbling people fall in love. Oh! And then that's it. Yeah. So, I don't know. It was, I had a lot of notes.
I liked your summation of like the 1930s musical sort of trope.
Yeah, and then
there's this one eligible person, and there's this one eligible person magically.
I think I'm used to, though, like I had that same meta reaction.
Yeah.
And I used to read like a ton of self-referential, postmodern, like hoity-toity stuff. And, books that are about books and, like, oh, and the author is actually writing about themselves. And like, he's named himself after this character and like where it's all kind of wink, wink. And it's a comment on that. And so there was a part of me where I was reading this and I'm like, I wonder if this is like, is this commentary on this genre of book? And I kept thinking like, okay, so there is a chapter where she calls like the chapter basic chick lit or something. And I'm like, this is like the closest this gets to commentary. I think this is just like self-referential and pandering with no other point to it other than to be optioned for a movie.
Yeah. I have to say though, with all the book references they made, I did like that they had a list of all the books mentioned and all the authors mentioned. I found that was helpful because some of the books I was like, oh, I've definitely read that. And other ones I'm like, I actually would rather be reading that instead of this, but whatever. There were a couple of lines that I thought were really interesting. So like,
we're doing positive notes first then?
Yes, positive. Oh, but I also want to mention that Margaret in the chat said that she's wondering that because it's a translation, she's wondering how many, using the polite words.
Is it a translation though? I don't know that there's a translator. Correct?
Oh, no?
I didn't see anything that said it was
translated from Swedish.
Yeah.
Oh, huh.
So, all right.
Good catch.
So she's wondering if the translator
so
used a
much
lot of
better in
polite
Swedish.
words. Yeah, hopefully it is in the original.
I hope it's so much better in
So there was one part where she was taught, like, she's first waiting for Amy to pick her up. She said there wasn't a chance in the world that someone who wrote on proper cream-colored writing paper would abandon a friend in a strange town or turn out to be a psychopathic serial killer, which I thought was really interesting, like the judgments we make on people's letters. And I would be the same way, like, no, she uses like really nice linen paper and like a fountain pen. Like, there's no way she's crazy. There's just no way she's crazy. And then the other thing that I thought was really funny, just because
I don't know, that might actually be like, this person still writes letters. Maybe they are crazy.
Yeah.
And that's me saying that.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing, just because reminds me of my mother so much, is like when she's talking on the phone with her parents and she's like telling them that she's safe. Her mom leaves her a voicemail later, and it's like, if you're lying in pieces somewhere, I'll never forgive you unless you call us back right now. And I'm like, oh my God, my mom would be like, if you're dead right now, I'm going to kill you. And it's like, already taken care of if that's the case. Okay. I thought that was great. I don't know. So, what are your positive?
So I liked the bit about, I liked her signs. I liked her sign names in the bookshop.
Yeah.
And there's one point where she describes the novels by Dan Brown, and that's completely correct. He was so reliable that you would get the exact same story every time. A kind older mentor. Surely he won't turn out to be the villain.
Yeah.
And that is every single Dan Brown book. For sure. But guess what? Dan Brown is also great beach reading.
Yeah. There's a murder in it.
There's often a murder in it. Yeah, and I I think that's pretty much my only really positive note, because I began not liking Sarah. I mean, I got off on the wrong foot with Sarah because I'm a book reader. I am the kid that at whatever event you were doing, I had a book. Is it a school play? Is it a kid's baseball game? Is it a road trip with your parents? Is it a family reunion? Is it a funeral? Like, I have a book.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I am always reading that book. I've had many family members, in fact, be very upset. But guess what? I don't care. And I accept that about myself, and Sarah continually apologizes for it and acts like it's a bad thing and acts like the people in Sweden think she's so weird. Meanwhile, she mentions that Sweden has a national book buying holiday, and I don't believe in Sarah. Like, the author goes to great pains to make Sarah seem alien and other, and she's just not. Like, the bit that could be interesting about her, she takes as a detriment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I disliked the painting of that particular characteristic as something to be less.
Yeah, there was one point where someone was talking about her, and they were just saying, like, she's been hiding herself away, and now she just finally figured herself
how
out.
long she reads a book.
Oh, yeah, and it was just like,
Yeah,
and I was just like, dude, what's wrong with not being out in the open or, like, boisterous about yourself when you're not even sure who you are? Like, some people, it takes longer for them to figure out who they are. Like, that made me really upset. But yeah, also watching her, and it's like this barbecue happens, like
that's again musical. It's like a weird town.
Oh my god, that would have been a great part for a song. Like, yeah, they would have been like flipping burgers.
Been all about how she was
and then
reading
the burger
book.
could like flip into a bun. Dude, we need to write this.
Or like
musical.
when she was dressed up as a book, and like all of a sudden when the music started, all of a sudden you might have seen like a whole chorus of like book people behind her, and
that's the scene in Pollyanna where they're all dressed like the American flag and they have to sing the song.
Yeah,
that's how it works. Her time in Broken Wheel had made her think about what she had actually done in Sweden. Her evenings and free weekends were just hazy memories now, blending one into another. It frightened her, and she doubted she would be happy simply reading books and working in the future. What? That sounds great.
And that's what she's going to end up doing in Iowa anyway, right?
Yeah.
No, because now she's white.
Well, yeah.
Oh, right. That's what's going on.
Yeah. Now she has definition.
Right.
Because she has
a man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now she knows who she is because she has someone else.
Yeah, because she can define herself through other people.
Yeah.
Oh man. Let me see now. What else? Oh, speaking of the notes that you were talking about for her bookshelves, she was talking about like how cigarette packs have warnings on them or whatever. So why can't books with unhappy endings have warnings on them? And I'm like, I wouldn't want to know there's an unhappy ending.
Also, your opinion is your opinion, man.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, they bring that up where she thought something was a happy ending, and it's like he loses a hand and like he's blind or whatever, but it's still a happy ending. And I've been like, I lost a hand. That's not really a happy ending.
Yeah, because he probably found true love at the end.
Oh yeah, right. True love or whatever.
I'm sorry, we're not romantic people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But see, at least they had a character in the book for you so that you could have someone to identify with who is like, oh yeah, no romance, I hate that book, and then who just kind of disappears and ends up, I don't know. There were so many just nonsense, like trailing off into nowhere, like those two old women who you mentioned before.
The whole like getting people in the town to read books to bamboozle the other town. What a weird premise. That is so weird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So bizarre.
Donovan and I rarely ever talk about the books before we have book club, just so it's all fresh and we can be all like rancorous in person. But
yeah, we haven't already had this conversation 3 times.
But the one thing you did mention to me when you started the book was, I don't believe any of these people are real.
No.
They're two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
almost
The only person I liked was George.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
I actually kind of liked Caroline too.
Yeah, but except for
Weirdly,
the whole
I
romance
liked
thing in the
Caroline.
end, I was
that
like,
whole
what?
thing was odd, but I would have liked Caroline more if she hadn't changed.
No,
if she had remained unchanged.
Well, really, yeah, that would have been really cool. What really pissed me off is like, oh, now he's bisexual because it works for your fucking plot.
It's just like
there's
a lot of
bisexual because he saw you reading gay erotica.
There's a lot of because it works for the plot.
Yeah.
That happens in this book. The plot.
I feel like the last third of the book, like I was doing a good job. I was committed to like reading it and giving it a chance.
Yeah.
And then the last 150 pages or so, I was like, all right, find the plot on the page, remember the plot, turn the page. And I feel totally valid in choosing to spend my time that way, because at that point, every single bit of the plot was just becoming so nonsensical and so totally untrue to any of the other characters set up that had previously happened and any of the other plot points. I'm like, well, I'm not going to gain any further insight from actually spending any time reading what the rest of this says. So I never do that. I'm even back when I was a kid and I had to read a book for school that I didn't like, I would nope, I don't skim, I read the whole thing. This I'm like, turn it.
Oh, I didn't do that. I decided to read the whole without skimming. There's only maybe a couple books I've skimmed in my life. The only time I found anyone believable was when who's the love interest guy? Tom
sounds right.
Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Tom sounds right.
Some white guy.
Tom.
Who knows? So Tom.
Yeah, they all have totally normal names except the immigration officer is named Gavin. Seems odd. But anyway.
Yeah. So
really a strange name
which
to
he
throw
comes
in
out of
there.
fucking left field. Whatever. He comes out of left field completely.
That's a book rule. It's don't introduce a character back here.
Yeah.
And then a character who ends up being totally inconsequential.
Yes.
Yeah.
He could have never shown up and it would have still been okay.
Yeah.
It could have worked out a different way.
Yeah, we honestly we didn't even need that scene.
Yeah.
No.
At all.
No.
They still could have just pretended you just have a weirdo wedding and they go through with it and turn out they really do like each other at the end.
Yeah. It's oh wait, you do actually? Yeah. Wow. So the only time I found them, really Sarah and Tom or whatever, is believable is when he was cooking her American food and they were fucking awkward as shit. They were just I don't know what to do with my hands, basically. And I was just okay, yes, this is real. It's two people who actually like each other who don't want to screw it up. And they're trying everything in their power to impress the other person. And this scene here, snapshot of a photo, I can actually imagine that they're two kind of real people.
And I like the dynamic with George and Claire.
Oh, yeah.
Two neighbors who are also sort of adrift and I would have, had this been a book that actually did right by its characters, not that I had any better expectations than this, but I would have liked to have seen more about Claire or how she felt about being used by Tom in those scenes where he was trying to avoid Sarah. But the one scene that I actually really liked was George going and cleaning Claire's house.
Oh yeah, that was super
and
awesome.
then that interaction afterwards of him trying to suss out how she was reacting to that, and kind of like that moment where it's okay, they're trying to figure out this other way of taking care of each other outside of a romantic relationship, and then you that was the first moment that I actually saw what the author was telling us otherwise about the town taking care of people. There was a lot of tell instead of the show, and that was the one time that I actually saw any sort of people genuinely relying on one another or being good to each other instead of just manipulative or creepy.
Do you think that maybe this would have read better as a bunch of short stories? No, isolate those characters out and let them be their own thing rather than getting thrown in to the mix for 2 seconds.
The POV switching all the time is
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was like all this, like you're in Sarah's head for so long, and then all of a sudden, like you're in someone else's head, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like I don't know. There was no warning on it. For some reason, it felt off.
It's like if you're going to have an omniscient narrator, then there's kind of like usually some kind of common thread or tone or
Yeah.
I really liked that scene as well, simply because I would super like somebody to come clean my house. That'd be so great. That's the most romantic thing anybody can do ever. Is clean the house.
Oh man.
I'm not even joking. I have a
No, I know. I'm with
it's-
you on that.
That's great.
They have that book of like porn for women. And it's just dudes cleaning houses, like pictures of dudes cleaning.
Like, I
houses.
don't need to even see it. It's better if I don't see it.
Yeah,
I just want it to be magically cleaned.
just come home. What was the other thing? I wrote like some really. I was telling Donovan that my notes to myself are like hilarious to me. One I put non-consensual. Like, what the hell is this? It must have been when the kid was trying to kiss what's her face.
Josh attempting to kiss
Yeah.
Claire.
I don't remember. Something was
Such a
non-consensual to
weird,
me.
forced relationship.
Yeah, that was. I was like, why are they really trying to? Oh, yeah. When she signs the marriage license, just like, yeah, I think he'll take care of it. He'll blow them off.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He'll say no.
He'll say no. Yeah, because I'm not going to do it. Who cares? My note was, this is Three's Company's level of fuckery. That was my.
Yeah.
It's just like, no. How about you just don't sign it?
Yeah,
Like,
because it's wrong. All of this is wrong.
I don't know. Anyway, what was the other thing? There was something else. Let me see. I had some other notes.
I would have gotten a lot more enjoyment out of the book if our letters from Amy seemed more like real letters.
You didn't think they were real letters?
No, because they don't talk about the weather. They don't ask.
There's no
Sarah, any
preamble.
questions?
It's all plot.
Yeah, it's all just story.
Also, why didn't she say she was sick?
Well, I don't have a problem with, because she does mention that
She's got a
off her
complaint.
feet. She doesn't mention that she's dying, but she probably figured she'd just tell her when she got there. Like, I can see hiding that. It's a letter, whatever. That didn't bother me. But what bothers me is that she has no thoughts or questions for Sarah, and we never see Sarah's letters back, and it just didn't.
Well,
none of it feels real because of it.
Okay, to ask a book clubby question then, what do the contents of Amy Harris's letters reveal about her, Sarah, and their pen-friend relationship? That's my professional voice.
So, I mean, it does more description of what's going on.
Yeah,
Like,
all it is.
No,
Go for it.
It's just describing what you need to know about the other characters instead of letting them reveal themselves through
Yeah.
what it is that they actually do. It's
in
like,
case you didn't get it.
yeah,
But the thing that's weird to me though is that she'll mention stuff and then I'm like, but why was this letter put here? Like, it has nothing to do with the chapter that's coming after. Like, you know what I mean?
and then when it started to at the end,
Yeah.
when it started to reveal itself that like there was some kind of chronology here and these were the letters written right before she died, I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Like, you've got these last two letters that are sort of being like, and you should come here, but
Yeah.
none of the other letters like led up to that in any way or showed their relationship becoming deeper or anything.
Yeah, it did. That's it. It doesn't show the relationship between Amy and Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
It shows Amy's relationship to the people in her town.
Yes.
It shows no relationship between Amy and Sarah, and you do not travel from Sweden to a tiny town in Iowa without having a relationship. The end.
So to take it away from the book for a second, how do you feel about meeting pen pals?
I like it. I'm okay with it. I have done it a lot. And so I'm much more comfortable with it now than I was when it was new. But I've had almost exclusively positive experiences. I find it goes better if it can be in a private focused place rather than like a loud place with other things going on. Like, because sometimes pen pals would come up at craft fairs and I'm trying to do my craft fair. It's really hard to interact with someone that you've had such a fairly intimate relationship with while you're doing something else. So it's like meet for lunch or meet for coffee and you just talk. Like you've talked on paper and it can be hard to talk in person, but it tends to go okay.
So then do you feel that the personality that you portray in a letter, which is sometimes different from who you are in real life, like how do you feel those mesh up when you meet the pen pal? Like, so I'm wondering, how would Amy been?
How would Amy have been different?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be cool if we knew anything about Amy from her letters.
Yeah.
Except we only know about Broken Wheel.
And I don't feel like it's valid to make every single character motivation of every single person in the story that they do this because they love Broken Wheel so much. Like, that's what you're told about Amy. That's what you're told about, you know, why Tom stays. That's why you're told about, like, all of that. And that's just like this whole universal motivation. I'm like, is it some kind of like alien cult of, you know, like mass brainwashing here?
And I don't think it's just we live in Chicago, we don't understand small towns.
No.
Because I grew up in a very, very, very small town. And like, it's just not, this is a fantasy.
Well, the author's from Sweden.
I
So
get
she's
it.
writing a fantasy of America, probably.
She is, and she's writing a fantasy of America drawn from a ton of books.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it feels so weird and false and just like cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense almost if she didn't try to introduce like social issues into it. It seemed odd with her talking about like the recession and racism and economic conditions and all this other stuff. I'm like, if you clearly know nothing at all.
She votes against the EU. I was very upset.
It's like, if you know nothing about any of these dynamics, not even enough to be able to like illustrate this town as if it's contained by human beings, like don't try to get into like American politics or interpersonal and social conditions. It just seemed so forced, like she was trying to show that she knew what she was talking about. But
And I wouldn't expect a person from Sweden to have any grip on that.
I wonder how people in Sweden think about this book. Do they think it's like a really good portrayal of America?
I don't know.
Sweden, tell us. No.
We definitely have members that are from Sweden.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're watching the book club or not, but I hope they are, and I hope they can talk to us about it.
So Margaret is killing it today, and she said, Broken Wheel, hold on. Okay, Broken Wheel is like Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls, but even more exaggerated. So I think that's a really interesting parallel. But the one time that Sarah, I felt, was actually strong was when Tom tried to start an argument with her at the party and was like, "You're going home now." And she's like, "No, I'm not." I was like,
I don't even remember that.
You don't remember that?
No.
It was at the bar after she was dressed like a book.
Me.
Yeah, it stuck out to me because she actually was like, "I'm not doing this."
It stuck out to me because it seemed totally out of character.
Yes.
Yeah.
For both of them.
But
maybe because they were showing emotions, which is weird in this book. I don't know.
Instead of just saying that they're doing something and not knowing why.
Yeah. So why didn't they ever tell each other that they liked each other? I don't get that part either. Like, he fell on top of her and started kissing her. I think after that happens. I think that after that happens, you can tell someone that you maybe like them. I don't know.
Well, I think very, very near the end, there was like I don't want a long distance relationship, blah, blah, blah. But whatever. Doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Way to go, Donovan. Yeah. So Donovan was mentioning that we've read 3 bad books in a row. Is that what you said? Okay. So we've
read 3 books that I didn't necessarily enjoy.
Right.
And had problems with.
One of our members on the last book, not on Salinger Year, on the other one. What was the one? Letters to the Lost. That's the one. She commented, "Wow, you guys are really harsh." So I apologize if you guys actually enjoyed this book and that we're being harsh. But
Again,
I think in general, we just are harsh.
Yeah, it's easy to be a critic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we do try to say things that we do like about the book. I would say if I had to rank them, I would rank this book below those other two, though. Like, I really didn't enjoy reading the romance book, but it's much better written than this book.
Yeah. Well, there's time travel, or not time travel. There's time parallels. Like, so it's like some stuff that happened.
It told you a story in the past and
a story in the future,
the present,
now, whatever. So that was interesting.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was much better written than this book, and even it's pretty much on par with my Salinger Year for the writing style. I think I also feel like it's just very young woman finding themselves, and
she doesn't actually fucking find herself.
I have no patience for it, though. Like,
I would never
like it with the program.
I would never call this book a coming to age book because nothing happens. She doesn't come to anything. She just stays put. It's like, this is easy to not leave here. Is basically what occurs, which is the same reason she probably stayed working at that bookstore.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to like stare off into the distance and think about like any instances of agency that she might have actually had that weren't tied in with someone else. Like, she starts the bookshop because she like feels like she needs to pay people back because of doing something for Amy. And like, I see that question over your shoulder of like, how does Sarah become such a catalyst for change in Broken Wheel when she felt so powerless in her normal life in Sweden?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing in this book that indicates she does. Like, every single thing that she does is not because she's discovering more about her own capabilities. It's because she feels like she owes something to someone, or she gets caught up in someone else's like weird manipulations.
And they are weird manipulations.
Yes, they are.
Like, what? Just wacky. Wacky, wacky, wacky.
Oh, man. So hopefully our chain of shit books, according to Donovan, is going to change because our next book is a Terry Pratchett book, of which Terry Pratchett was mentioned in this book as being a consistently good author. I've only read...
And his work is an example of where you can take social issues and make commentary about them and do it correctly.
Well, I've only read 3 of his books.
I've read every single Terry Pratchett
Right.
book.
So, and then the
the
only reason I got into him is because I read The Hitchhiker's Guide, and I was telling Donovan how much I love the writing style. She's like, you should really read Terry Pratchett then. And I was just like, okay, sure, whatever. And I read it and I was like, yeah, Terry fucking Pratchett's awesome. So we're going to read Going Postal. So I've been trying to read the books in order. So this
Going Postal is far out but it starts a whole new character in the Discworld universe, so you're fine.
Yeah, so the way that Don was explaining his books to me was that while there's a series, he has like these little cycles of stories about a character. So this one who's the character?
His name is Moist von Lipwig.
I really wish I could have been the guest on this one.
You can be the 4th if you want to join us again. So yeah, our guest is actually going to be totally different this time in that we're going to have a contest for the guest. So that when you take a picture of yourself holding your favorite Terry Pratchett book and
or your favorite book on letters, if you haven't read any Terry Pratchett, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And then just use the hashtag L.W.A book club, and then we will choose you from the contest. We're going to announce the winner on the letter social that we have on September 4th. So it's going to be a special guest, and you can totally come and join us as a 4th if you want to make up for. Since I felt really bad that I invited you for this one.
I said yes without looking up the book, and then after I looked it up and I started reading this, I'm like, I should have looked up the book before I said yes. But
yeah,
but thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm enjoying this conversation immensely, and it's very cathartic.
Yeah.
I have one more niggly note.
Oh yeah, we still have 20 minutes, so if
Okay.
you want to keep going.
So there's a plot point
Mhm.
where
Wait,
George's
there's a plot point?
well, for what it is, George's daughter,
Oh yeah,
who's Sophie,
yeah, Sophie.
and the girl who has worked in a bookshop for 10 years and reads all the books, can't think of any books in there with dragons. Meanwhile, has already mentioned the whole Aragon series back at the beginning was on Amy's shelf.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, I'll have to take your address. It's like I could think of 30 books with dragons to recommend to that girl immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't work in a bookshop.
And also for most of the book, because of the way that the wife being gone was described separately from the daughter being gone, I thought that the daughter had like literally disappeared and was like lost or had run away.
I thought she was dead.
I thought she was dead too. I thought
I
like
seriously thought she was
something had
dead.
happened, and then all of a sudden she's back, and it's also kind of like no big deal at all.
Yeah, it was very no fanfare. It's just like,
yeah. And also then when the new boyfriend shows up, then it's also no big deal. It's
when they leave.
Yeah.
It's okay. The ex-wife
Just like,
or
George,
whatever.
change your locks.
Yeah.
Lock your door.
Yeah.
But nobody in Broken Wheel locks their doors.
Right.
Everybody locks their goddamn door.
No, they don't. No. There's plenty of small towns where they do not lock their doors still.
If you were my mother, you locked the door.
I'm just telling you. I know of towns.
I know of towns.
I know of towns where I've been like, why is this front door just okay? I could be a killer, guys, and I'm walking into a house right now.
Yep.
No, so the other thing that was really weird is like, she just happened to like. I'm sure she's broken up with boyfriends before, and this is the first time
This
she
is the first
decides
time
to
she's
stay
gone
with him.
back to George.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
it seems
this-
like that was not part of a pattern.
right.
And it definitely should have been for as laissez-faire as they were about it.
yeah.
And how they made this big deal about like the boyfriend coming to find them, and like at first it seemed like that would be a bad thing, and like, oh, who's this
Yeah,
guy
I thought it was
gonna
be like a huge thing,
Yeah.
and it was just like, oh no, we're just leaving now.
Yeah, like the way that they portrayed the boyfriend, I was like, this guy actually seems kind of nice and upstanding. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't seem like
He
someone that would
manages
just
a
stomp
taco
away
job,
from
he's got a
and
good
like,
job.
yeah, you know, it's just it seemed really weird, man. Okay, so then did this book inspire you to look up any of the books that Sarah mentioned at all that you haven't read?
Oh, I have to say, she doesn't really go out on a limb with these books.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm familiar with every single book mentioned in this book.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a deep pull.
That's another reason why it felt so much like this book was just screaming for like a movie option on every single page, because all the books it referenced were already movies. So like if you'd taken this book and you'd made it into a movie, then all the people watching the movie could still identify and still feel smart, because they're like, yeah, I've seen that movie.
There's one book that I didn't know what it was, and it's like it's a murder mystery or something like that. I have to look it up again, but it's the one where someone jumps off of a bridge or something in the first few pages. Like she mentioned like the first line of every book, like all in one paragraph, which was really disorienting until I realized what the hell she was doing. Yeah. So, and I was like,
I take it back. I haven't read The Bridges of Madison County because I don't care.
Oh yeah, I never read that either.
Yeah, you don't need
Isn't
to.
it? It's romance or something, right?
My mom
Yes.
used to work at the Brown Elephant, which is this amazing charity thrift store here in Chicago. And they would get so many copies of The Bridges of Madison County that there were a couple months when they were doing like a buy any book, get a copy of The Bridges of Madison County.
Oh my
free,
God, that's hilarious.
just to get them out of there.
That's funny.
Oh my God. That's
I would
awesome.
have built something out of them.
I saw someone, there was
Twilight books?
like Oxfam Books in the UK did something with, yeah, maybe it was 12. Oh no, it was copies of 50 Shades of Grey.
Ah,
They
yeah.
made like a whole fort out of it.
That's awesome. Oh man.
I don't think they had that many copies of The Bridges of Madison County, but it was getting close.
Neither Donovan or myself have read. No, you didn't read Twilight's, right?
I didn't I didn't read them. No, the only thing I read was Lucy Knisley's 4-panel comic summations of every book.
That was pretty awesome.
I need to find those.
Oh,
so
so good. It's okay. So that's one of the reasons I know. And also that one of our mutual friends read all the books and went to see the movies because she likes to torture herself. And so then she one day just told us all the story.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I was
like, this is the best way to know about these stories. Like, this is
so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous, you know? And she's just like, it was amazing. And because then you could talk to the person telling you the story, and this person's like, yeah, I know, but this is what happens next. So we're not going to read Twilight, guys.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Are there letters in Twilight?
No, I don't
No.
think so. Are there?
I don't know.
We still wouldn't do it anyway. All right. So any finishing
Other
thoughts?
business. Remember to put your recommendations on the Goodreads page.
Oh yeah.
The
reason that we are doing the Terry Pratchett book is because it was a recommendation from a few people on the Goodreads page.
I've actually had people mail me copies of Going Postal.
Oh really?
Like, you would like this.
Yeah.
That book and The Cat Who Played Post Office. And actually, I have a huge weak spot for the Cat Who mysteries.
Yeah.
I've read all of those. They're not great, but I like them.
Well, maybe we can do the cat one with the post office. It's probably going to be better than this one.
They're always murder mysteries.
Yeah. Then it's a better summer read. We can do it for next summer because
Okay.
someone dies. So perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect featuring.
Did you pick this one specifically as like a summer beach book?
We had originally sort of set up to do the nurses' letters and diaries book, and we were just like, that's from World War I.
Oh yeah, and
that's
we're
way
like,
too depressing.
that's way too depressing for summer.
June.
You need to be
swung in the complete total opposite
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah. So after the Terry Pratchett book, we're going to do nurses' letters from World War II, and that's going to be for the dead of winter when you're really good and depressed to read these letters, and then you can think about how your life is better than this woman's, probably, hopefully. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, submit your photos with your favorite hashtag, and we're only on Twitter and Instagram because we don't do Facebook. So
yes, where would you put them?
I don't
On
know.
your wall?
Facebook does stuff.
I don't know. Neither of us has Facebook, so
It does a thing with the thing, and there's pictures on it.
Yeah,
It produces stuff like this.
it does.
Yes.
If you take your Facebook, make it into a little book, and mail it to me, then I can maybe select you for the book club.
There you
That's
go.
how that works.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so then, sorry for this book. Try to think about it as a 1930s musical.
And if you enjoyed it, that is absolutely fine. We don't think any less of you.
No, we don't.
It does have a good heft to it, though, and it's a pretty good, refreshing throw.
Yeah, so that's how she finished her book, is that she threw it across the room. No, I mean, there were some good parts. It actually made me think a lot about pen pal relationships in general.
Sure.
So, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I don't like meeting pen pals because I just feel awkward and
Kathy
strange.
doesn't like people. Did you know this?
I don't like people at all. At all. So, yeah. And with that, people of America and other places.
You definitely want to be our guest on next book club, so
Yes.
Apply for that, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
And our next letter social is the September 4th.
I have no idea what it is.
September 4th. You wrote it down.
No. Oh, the letter social.
Oh,
yes.
and there's a social in San Francisco
Yes.
next weekend, Friday.
On Friday.
If there's still tickets available, it is on the blog.
Yeah. It's at Secret
Last
Alley.
I knew, we were pretty high up in the numbers. So
Okay. Yeah, so it's at Secret Alley, and so I'm not going to be there, unfortunately. Donovan is going to be in San Francisco. I'm going to be crying quietly in Chicago because I had to cancel my ticket for work stuff.
Huge bummer.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. So, yeah, and that's about
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So, bye, guys. Thanks again, Mel.
Thank you.